What do you call a player starting in midfield for the best team in the world, averaging a 7.2 match rating and leading the league with a flawless record? How about generational flop, waste of money, Farmers League merchant? These are just a few of the labels Florian Wirtz has endured in just a month at Liverpool, but he hasn't even been that bad. In fact, if you actually watch football, rather than forming your opinion off 20-second lowlights and Twitter narratives, you might notice that Wirtz has actually had a solid start, and by the end of the season, I'm certain he'll be the best attacking midfielder in the league. Liverpool being top of the league with a flawless record is actually a bit misleading, because they've been pretty average. They looked shaky against Bournemouth, needed a wonder goal to beat Arsenal, and last-minute goals against 10-man Newcastle and newly promoted Burnley to steal 6 points. And even as I'm writing this, they've just scored another last-minute winner against Atleti. But this is to be expected. They've just won the league, gone through a lot as a club over the summer, and have a completely new set of players. The fact that they still have a flawless record, despite the cracks, actually shows signs of a winning mentality that will encourage Liverpool fans. But when things aren't going exactly to plan, people like to point fingers, and unfortunately for Wirtz, many have been pointed at him. He has a huge price tag on his head, he plays in a position that demands goal contributions, and he's transitioned from a questionable league into the best league in the world. So it's not really a surprise. Not to mention, us football fans love to overreact and ridicule our rivals. But if we take a step back and really think about it, Liverpool have a gem on their hands, and with Wirtz stepping up to an elite Premier League level, it's not about if, but when. Measuring Liverpool's success over the last decade or so is pretty hard to do, and being a Liverpool fan in the Klopp era must have been bittersweet. They were undoubtedly the best team in the world for long periods of time, but in the last decade they didn't have too much to show for it. 1 Champions League, 2 Premier Leagues and 3 domestic cups are more than most clubs can dream of, but for a club of Liverpool's size and stature, it's not completely fulfilling their potential. Even individually, players like Salah and Van Dijk have been snubbed of Ballon d'Ors and other individual awards. But if we look at the numbers, we get a better idea of where Liverpool's weaknesses have been, and why they haven't quite reached a dynasty status that Pep City have managed to achieve. The Reds have actually been one of the most average teams in the last 8 years of the Premier League, in terms of dribbling. They regularly sit around the league average for attempted dribbles, successful dribbles and take-on efficiency. There's not much correlation with their dribbling and their league position in that time frame, but compared to City and Arsenal, their attacking unit has been much more one-dimensional, which may explain why their league position has been so up and down. When their attack works, it works amazingly, but when it doesn't, it struggles on the creative side, especially with key forwards like Salah, Mane and Diaz being more direct goal threats as opposed to technical creators. Even if we look at the team's progressive carries compared to progressive passes, we can see how the tendency to pass is much higher than the tendency to dribble, in basically every season in the last decade. And that brings us to Florian Wirtz. The German led the Bundesliga in goal-creating actions, progressive carries and successful take-ons last year, everything Liverpool are missing. And if we take it back to the season before, the Bundesliga player of the season was even more dominant, being top 5 in almost every creative attacking category, and leading the league yet again in goal-creating actions and progressive carries. Not only is Wirtz an elite passer and a pass receiver, which suits Liverpool's counter-attacking direct style of play, but he's also elite with the ball at his feet, which can give Liverpool another way to break teams down this season. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Liverpool's attack isn't extremely effective. They cruised the league last season, but having a player that can play in their system and also add a playmaking edge is invaluable, especially in tighter games against the Big Six and more defensive-minded teams. For years and years, that player's been Trent, but after his move to Madrid, there's a creative gap in the team. But like we mentioned in a previous video, modern fullbacks and cams have plenty of similarities, and there's no exception with these two. They had extremely similar touches and passes per game last season, but Wirtz was actually the superior playmaker. He did play in a more open league, but his per 90 stats for chances created and expected assists were significantly better. But even when Trent was at his best at the creative heart of the Liverpool side, he did it from right back. There's always been a creative void in the middle of Liverpool's pitch, ever since the days of Coutinho and Firmino, and it's not like they haven't tried to replace them. Over the last few years, the Reds have trialled different players in that central 10 role, all with slightly different skill sets and attributes. If we look at the heat maps of Szoboszlai, Elliott and McAllister for example, we can see a bit of a trend. As good as all these players are, they haven't been able to fulfill that creative role, with McAllister evolving into a box-to-box midfielder, and Szoboszlai more of a cam, but more of a box-crashing support player rather than a creative maestro. Even this season, the Hungarian has filled in at right back and done exceptionally, but he hasn't been able to offer that Coutinho effect through the middle. Wirtz's heat map is almost too good to be true, basically filling all the voids left by the other players. Liverpool played predominantly down the wing last season to remedy this, but this year they have the luxury of Wirtz through the middle. But his heat map covers so much of the opponent's half, not just the pocket outside the box, which credits his mileage and work rate just as much as his positioning. And while Liverpool have succeeded without an out-and-out 10 in their team for some time now, the signing of a 22-year-old, already proven superstar in that position, is an investment for the present and the future. Liverpool's style of play will start to adapt to Wirtz's strengths, and only make their attack more multi-dimensional and fluid for years to come. But fitting into a new team isn't just about what holes you can fill. It's also about how you can adapt to the play style and novelty of a whole new group of players, coaching staff and environment. Despite the conclusions some people have jumped to in just 5 games, Wirtz's fit on paper is even better than we originally thought. One thing that Liverpool have done season in season out since Klopp's arrival is press, and even though pressing's become more of a consensus tactic in modern football, Liverpool are one of the best at it. Last season, Liverpool ranked 3rd in the Premier League for passes per defensive action, a metric that measures how much time a pressing team allows its opponent before making a tackle, foul or interception. Bournemouth actually led the league, but Liverpool went far behind. And if we look overseas, the closest teams to this level of effective pressing are PSG and Leverkusen. All 3 teams have a similar style of play, with an emphasis on pressing as a team, playing through their fullbacks and scoring in transition. PSG and Liverpool's 2024-25 campaigns were seriously good, but Leverkusen the season before were nearly perfect, and at the heart of that unbeaten team of record breakers was Florian Wirtz. And I know what you're thinking, what's Wirtz got to do with the press? He was the cam, responsible for scoring and creating chances, the glory player who made all the headlines, but the German was actually one of the leading pressers on that team. Alonso's tactics meant that Leverkusen didn't need the lion's share of possession to score goals, and preferred to win the ball high up the pitch in dangerous positions. This meant that the forwards had to do just as much work as the rest of the team, and as you can see, Wirtz was everywhere. He won the ball 47 times in the final third last season, leading the league in that category with an average of 1.25 times per game, with him and Elise seriously distancing themselves from the competition. And this highlights a common misconception with Wirtz. His technical ability and highlights make you think he's just another silky, smooth attacking mid, but he's genuinely one of the most hard-working, effective players in the world. He's so versatile and coachable, which makes him a dream for any club that plays with an intense system. And Liverpool fit that description perfectly. But they were actually ranked 9th in the Premier League last season for winning the ball in the final third, despite their relentless press. With Wirtz's contributions, they'd be up to 2nd, and while this is theoretical, you can see how Wirtz's persistent playstyle will be the cherry on top of Liverpool's already formidable attack. But hating on Wirtz's numbers in front of goal doesn't even add up. We don't even have to go back 4 months, and he was one of the most efficient creators in Europe. The further right you are on this graph, the more shooting actions you create, and the further up you are, the more goals you create. So while players like Pedri, Bruno and Palmer are obviously great playmakers, the chances they create aren't as clear as those created by Elise, Salah and Yamal for example. And amongst those elite was Wirtz, with nearly 150 shot creating actions that led to 26 goals. So if people think a 5-game goal drought is enough to start jumping to conclusions, just remember what the 22-year-old's been doing for the last 2 years. But what Wirtz is already bringing every game is the thing that people say foreign players can't adapt to, the physicality and pace of the Prem. If I were a Liverpool fan, I'd much rather see Wirtz tirelessly flying up and down the pitch, tackling, pressing, and most importantly winning games, rather than scoring or assisting every now and then to keep the agendas at bay. I don't think I've been more confident that a player will flourish in the Prem since Haaland signed for City. We're talking about the best player on a team that went unbeaten and won 2 trophies just 2 years ago, with more last-minute winners than any team in any season ever. His mentality is exceptional, he's a proven winner, and he's physically relentless with an engine that never runs out of gas. If he's already performing at this level, without his creativity and natural talent settled in yet, it's going to be scary when he starts to find the form in front of goal that he's had in the last couple of seasons.